in a series of our college, that is MPM GFGC Karkala. On behalf of our college Quality Assessment Cell, Department of Economics and Commerce and Management Association, heartily welcome you all for today's lecture. I gladly welcome our beloved and motivating principal, Professor Srivarma Azri, for the today's webinar. Welcome you, sir. A warm welcome to Dr.Satish Kumar, Associate Professor, Department of Commerce, MAHE, the resource person of today's lecture. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Prasad Rao, Principal of GFGC Hebri. Welcome you, sir. We have participants from various colleges, mainly from Hebri College and our own college, and then Munialo. Heartily welcome to all members of the college. Welcome you all. And I take this opportunity to welcome all the participants of this international webinar series. I also welcome the IQAC coordinator of our college, Professor Jyoti Aljane, and Dr. Kiran sir, who took the initiative to organize this international webinar series. Welcome you, sir. And also welcome Professor Yogesh sir, HOD of English department, who is the backbone of this series by assisting all the technical support and assistance. Welcome you, sir. And also I welcome all my dear colleagues and friends to this webinar series. And the main today's program is mainly for our college students and some our colleagues. And also welcome all dear participants of this program. And also I welcome one and all again. And I take the pleasure of introducing our today's resource person, that is Dr. Satish, who accepted our invitation without second thought. So he talked today on the topic impact of COVID on the unorganized sectors. That is the most affected sector because of the COVID-19. So first of all, I express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Satish sir for accepting our invitation without any second thought. Thank you very much, Dr. Satish sir. I would like to give an introduction about Dr. Satish briefly. Dr. Satish is serving as an associate professor at Department of Commerce, Manipal Academy of Higher Education. He got his postgraduate degree from University of Mangalore. He was awarded with doctorate from University of Manipal for Gender Studies. He has been honored with fellowship from DIAD, Germany, and Tbilisi and ACSTM Delhi. He has 7 Scopus Index and several non-Scopus Index journal publications in his record. He has participated in several national and international seminars, presented research papers. Currently, 5 research candidates are pursuing their doctoral studies under his guidance. Dr. Satish Kumar has been a part of several research projects funded by NABARD, Ministry of Tribal Affairs and Government of Karnataka. And now I welcome Dr. Satish Kumar to share your thoughts with us. Thank you, one and all. Over to Dr. Satish Kumar. Sir, ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ.
Am I audible?
Yes. Yes. Now you are audible.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, all. Thank you so much for giving an opportunity to talk about the topic on the impact of COVID on unorganized sector. So we have a freedom to talk, but to be very honest, we don't have a freedom to express something which is not really true. That's what I believe. So I go with the simple understanding first. In economics language, what exactly the COVID impact will be called as. Because many of the time, when you read an article or people are talking about COVID, they say, no, God, economy is collapsed, this, that, and all. I would like to tell you the impact of a COVID, what we say exactly. The impact of the COVID will be treated as a technical terminology called as economic shock. In your day-to-day life, you might be seeing sometimes a shock. Shock may be positive, shock may be negative. But do you think that shock is always be there? Or if the student suddenly a professor come and starts shouting, maybe sometime they have a shock. After that, every time if the faculty do that, then it is not going to be a shock for them. Please remember, economic shock are those sudden changes in the economy. When I say economy, it may be on demand or supply of the economy due to some exogenous factors. Now, when I use the word exogenous factor, they are the factors beyond the economy structure. If I say raw materials are not available, then it is not treated as economic shock. It is because of the supply demand problem. Now, the COVID or the pandemic situation, when it is reported to the Chinese economy, our economy was not that had an impact. We were, of course, we had some certain amount of the external source problem, but we were happy to have our own life with all kinds of economic activities. When it is reported to, please note, when it is reported to the first time in Kerala, then also we were not much worried because there is only 3 cases. The moment it became a pandemic, when it is declared as a pandemic, the spread factor, then it created a lot of chaos in our day-to-day life, including economic activities. So being an economic professor, I have an understanding on unorganized sector and impact in a different manner. So first of all, we have to understand it is an economic shock when it was reported in 2019. In the middle of somewhere in the July, we started getting up the heat of the impact through lockdown. Please remember, economic activity is still there. It was in a very good numbers. If you see the GDP before the lockdown and after the lockdown. So please understand, the moment there was a lockdown, then the movement was started restricted. Please remember, when there is a movement restriction in a pure economics, we say land, labor, capital, and entrepreneur should be mobile. Except the land, of course, we can assume that I am going to buy a land in US because there is a good opportunity for my business. Then land, labor, capital, and organizations are mobile. Then economic activities will happen. So the moment there was a restriction, the first foremost important factor was affected was labor. You might be seen all of a sudden the migrant workers. Please understand, for Indian context, if I look into that, all those migrant workers were moved here and there. So the moment this was happened, definitely the production process as a source of production, the labor was an important factor of production. The production started impact on in the economy. That is the first thing which has happened at the level of, but still people had money to buy. Please note, the initial first 2 months, people had a nice time. You might have seen, I took rest, I had this challenge, private challenge, that challenge, this challenge, food, everything was moving good. But the impact started, please understand, this entire system is a connected system where there is a producer, there is a buyer. Please remember, There is a consumer, there is a producer. So the moment the producer was affected because of the factors of production were affected, then it affected the consumer also. How? Please understand. Now, who's the consumer here? I, being a migrant worker, I'm also a consumer in the economy. The moment my economic activities as a part of the agent in the process of production was stopped, it's quite natural that for a production, we pay something called as factors of production. So the moment the factor of production started stopping, automatically it is impacted on consumption. Please note, when you have a salary, then you go and buy. But please understand, it is a circular in nature. The moment the production activities were affected, people were happy to have, no doubt on that. Okay, we'll have a lockdown, we'll spend some time with the house, everything was fine. But slowly and gradually, the impact was shifted from production to consumption. How it happened? Two ways it has happened. Again, when I say the production was affected, point number, the people were those who were working in that particular sector. Say, for example, construction industry. If you see the report from the Indian economy, if you look into the Indian context, we have a more number of unorganized sector. If you see the proportion, the labors, that is agriculture, we have a trade, we have a construction industry, we have a real estate, we have professional services, etc., etc. So all those employees were involved in this particular unorganized. I would like to give you clarity again. What do you mean by organized sector and what do you mean by unorganized sector? It's very simple to understand in a simple language. When I say unorganized sector, the part of the entire process of the production, if you say the labor, if you say unorganized sector workers, then automatically there is no written contract. If I say I'm working in MAHE, we had a contract and we signed a contract saying that I am the employee of so and so. The moment I become the employee of the company or the institution, automatically I will be paid with some point of salary, then paid leaves, health benefits, or social securities like PF, ESI, all this. So if I be provided all this in a simple language, I will be a formal worker, or I'm in a organized sector. Please understand. My topic you are here given is unorganized sector. So what is unorganized here? If the segment is not having a proper structure in terms of legal entity, in terms of policy, or in terms of the employees' lifestyle, everything comes under this. So please understand, if you look into the data sheet of Indian economy from last few years, you can refer, there is a separate commission was employed to look into this aspect of unorganized sector, how they are doing good. In 2005, there is a separate commission was given. So that clearly says that if you say that unorganized, then you will not get a written contract, you may not be having a paid leave, you may not be having a health benefits or a social security. Now visualize, when I say unorganized sector, no doubt, just go to any agriculturist. You ask somebody, do you have any written contract with the government of Karnataka? That okay, I will produce this much, you will give me this much price so that my income is this much? No. Why? Very simple, it is a private enterprises. But do you think that in a private enterprises only we have an unorganized sector? No. No. In a public sector also, sometimes they do kind of a outsourcing. You might be seeing, immediately when we need a laborers in the health industry. So what government of India has done, they're given a contract that, okay, for a temporary purpose, we are going to get these many people into the task force. So they were not given any kind of a, say for example, paid leaves or some kind of a social security. Maybe partially government has given some insurance to protect their life, if not. They don't have a kind of a contract saying that you are eligible for all these rights and all. So please understand, when I use the word unorganized sector, if I look into the Indian context, the unorganized sector participation is much influential than the organized sector. Just for your data understanding, I would like to quote some percentages. Agriculture, if you say, the records have been very clearly saying more than 93%, please understand, more than 93% is in agriculture, which represents as a unorganized sector. Unorganized sector. It means that you can understand now, the moment there is a lockdown, the production was hampered or affected. So the very simple economics says that when the production hampers, it is quite natural that the employment is affected. So the moment when I say employment is in a problem, automatically that influence on purchasing power of the people. Please note, when you say purchasing power is affected, it is quite natural that the demand for goods and services also slowly and gradually going to be affected negatively. So I request somebody is in, please mute. So please understand here in this context, we have a question is given here is, what is the impact? And please understand one more thing is, when I say economic shock, all of a sudden, my supply demand has changed. All of a sudden. Now, when I say all of a sudden, shock may be positive, shock may be negative. Please note, shock may be positive, shock may be negative. When I say shock is positive, then sudden increase in the demand for particular service, say for example, courier service, logistic, all of a sudden they all boomed up like anything. The service into medical industry, they're gone up like anything. So we can't judge, say that the impact is only something negative. No, but we have to see at the entire segment. If you say entire segment, what we call as unorganized sector, the majority of the people had the shock would have been negative. Now, what do you mean by negative shock? It means that drastic, sudden change, sudden decline in demand, sudden decline in supply. Now, again, please understand here, when I say demand and supply, unorganized sector which is involved in a production, which was involved in a consumption, they were had an impact. So when I say economic agents like a labor was affected, their purchasing power was affected. No doubt, we might be thought that, okay, if they are lost a job, I need not to worry. We always think like that. My salary is okay, my job is okay, so I need not to worry because I'm working in a organized sector. Say, for example, as a university faculty, I can say that, no, I'm an organized sector. Please note, we are all interconnected. We are all interconnected. I cannot simply say, no, they are all in a problem, I need not to worry, because that's what exactly our ancestors long back they said, Sarve Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We all belong to one family and there is no boundaries as such. And China cannot say that, okay, India is affected, then I'm not worried. Please note, today globalization is opened up the gate to everybody, and every economy in the world were affected positively or negatively due to the economic shock called as pandemic. I hope my introduction part is very clear. Now, come back to the Indian context. The moment I looked into the impact, I had two ways to say here. Now, my simple question again, it is, if every year, God's grace, it should not happen. But in case if you say that, if you recently looked into IMF report, they have a target up to 2025. Now, in case if you think that it is wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5 like this, then do you think that it is an economic shock? Again, this question should be answered maybe the time has to answer whether it's really going to be a shock. If you remember the lockdown one, when it has happened, we had a very, mixed experience. When they started with the lockdown two, people were mindset of where production, consumption, everything was a little adjusted. Please note, not completely adjusted. It is little adjusted. But as if it is going through with the lockdown 3, 4, 5 and all, slowly and gradually, economy will adjust in terms of supply and demand. Therefore, when I say economic shock, that will be an automatic adjustment will occur if it is a pure economy. When I say pure economy, where the market forces are playing significant role. But if you look into Indian economy, we cannot say that it is a pure economy in terms of the market forces. It is government also parallelly playing a role. So I can say that is a partial force is from the market forces, partial influence from the government, because the government has to interfere as active agent in the production process, in the process of consumption. You might have seen government of India started distributing the food grains, paying the facilities, all these things. This is an intervention by the government, because supply demand is not at that strong waves where India can be handled as a pure economy. So it was not possible. So please understand here. Please understand here. Am I audible? Somebody is saying it is network issues. Vidya, am I audible?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Great. So please understand here, now I look into the entire segment into two components, is a wave 1 or COVID 1 and COVID 2. Please understand at this context, you might be seeing the data sheet on agriculture. If I look into the contribution of agriculture on Indian economy, very interestingly, it become the silver line for the economy. And the GDP growth has fallen down drastically. And you know that it was negative. And after a long time, somewhere in 1979 to 80, we had such a kind of a V-shaped trajectory. Now we had, if you see the growth data, we have a V-shaped trajectory has been seen. Now please understand when I'm saying that how the impact on production. If I'm looking at the impact on production due to COVID, the COVID has impact itself, and because of the control measure of COVID also influence on economy. So there are two segments that identify. Now, as a COVID, if I take as a commodity or a process, definitely the COVID has shifted the demand for healthcare services, no doubt. It has increased. You know that all of a sudden when there is a COVID started, there was a lot of demand for N90 or mask and all. You might have seen the mask prices went up from 10, 20 rupees to 300, 400 rupees. And we have read in newspaper that, we have imported this. So anything related to healthcare industry, they started imported. It means that the COVID has, in an unorganized sector, if I look into that, the people, those who are living even in the healthcare industry, unorganized sector, they were positively impacted. They got the identity. Government said, let's come back. We will give you proper procedures. We will give you proper facilities. You can work for it. Earlier, they were working like an unorganized segment. Now they become a stronger and stronger. This is the one way. Look into agriculture sector. If I say, as I already told you, agricultural production has been highly demanded and understood, and the production process went up. Why? It's quite natural that Indian economy has a three major sectors: agriculture, industry, and service sector. You know that. Service sector major components was shut down because of the restriction of the movement. So automatically the production dimensions have been changed. But in agriculture, very interestingly, you might be read in a newspaper, you might be felt in your day-to-day life. People started talking about agriculture. Let's start. It may be in Tulu, people say that, Dana Kanda da Podu. because people understood that somewhere the production required. Please understand, it was been told in Upanishad that Krishito naste durbhaksham. When you have agriculture appropriately, then we will not have a famine. Now, what do you mean famine here? Inflation. But interestingly, if you have seen the inflation rate, food inflation, please note, food inflation, if you say CPI or WPI, what is CPI, consumer price index, or wholesale price index, it went up. It went up. Please understand, when you say inflation means the price rate is going up. When there is a price is going up, it gives a motivation to produce. It gives a motivation to produce because the price is going up and supplier is interested to produce more and more. This is somewhere we felt that, okay, agriculture sector, even though it was unorganized sector, people got confident back to the economy. They said, yes, it is our time. It is our time. You might be seeing people have moved from service industry to agriculture. We always say that what will do with the excess labor supply? If you see the old model, that clearly says that culture, all those growth models, if you say this is a challenge of the economy, how to shift the surplus labor from one sector to another sector. Very interestingly, it has been reverse experience by the Indian economy. So agricultural sector was given more importance. Even NABARD was become more active. So the credit access to the unorganized sector also failed. Please understand. But how many people have taken advantage? It is up to their understanding how they best understood the entire phenomena of COVID or impact. And if you look into the trade, very interestingly, certain segments had really had a boom, like Kirana shop. Trade went up like anything. You might be saw all of a sudden the D-Mart was in the front line. Why? The very simple, they were started selling those grocery items. So automatically, the owner of the D-Mart, you know that all of a sudden he was came into the picture in the even in the rich list also. Why? Because the trading in terms of necessary items, essential items, it went up. Even those who are involved in trading in unorganized sector, unorganizedly managed their kirana shop, they got positive impact, no doubt. But those who are were in a threat of, even in the organized sector or unorganized sector, not all the trade become beneficial. If you see that service industry, if you say hotels were really in trouble. So the moment hotels were in trouble, the vegetable owners will be also had a tough time. The grocery items involved in this were also affected. So please understand, the related industry which they had affected, they also given the backfire or given the negative impact those who are depending on this ancillary industries. So if the hotels were shut down, automatically the people, those who are supplying goods and services to hotels, were in a trouble, and they were, most of them are unorganized sector. Do you know, in your nearby hotel, if you have seen the chips, somebody is producing the chips, do you know which company it belongs to? When you purchase, you see some name is given, that's all. Some seal is there. But the moment you go to a D-Mart, when you go to a, say for example, a More or Big Bazaar, you see the same food stuff was packed, processed properly, sealed, brand name, everything is there. So this is an organized sector. Please understand. But these people were unorganized sector. So those who are depending on unorganized sector source, they were definitely had a negative impact because of the restrictions or because of the pandemic. Now, looking into the construction industries, 60% of the labor force in a construction industry is unorganized sector. Please note, this is a very important point. The unorganized sector, construction workers, you might be seeing the migrant workers. They're moving from one place to, do you know which state is the highest migration workers? The states like Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, even Uttar Pradesh, they all, I mean, Rajasthan, these states, where had a highest number of migrant workers, those who used to visit Mumbai and the major cities, they caught up in between, the construction was in effect. So automatically they had a difficult time to source their income, to source their livelihood. Now, real estate, again, real estate was also in the tough time, and those who are belong real estate industry, service industry, again, please remember unorganized sector. If you have come to Malpe Beach, the beach was stopped. I mean, it was restricted automatically. Those who are nearby, those who are doing small business in a beach or near to a hotel, I mean, temple or all those tourism places, they also had a tough time. So please understand the tourism was affected, service industries. I'm talking about all of our unorganized sector. I'm not talking about the organized sector. People still, those who are in the regulated hotels, they've been promised that we will take care of you. Some amount of the salary was given. They were managed to 2 months salary, 3 months salary. But those who were unorganized, all of a sudden, a samosa wala, all of a sudden, he was not able to understand what to do. So please understand, there is a understanding here is if there is a shock will also give you some kind of a immunity power in the economy. It is hard to understand, but there is no other way around because viruses is not in my hand. So I can say only that up to limit I can say that, but human mind unable to judge which is invisible. Please note. That's why service industry always be given. I don't know. Many of you are. I mean, almost all of you are in a commerce stream. Most of you are thinking to go to service industry. Now, service industry comes under invisible. When you say invisible, then your behavior should be appropriate according to the need. Not that, no, I am like this only. I have BBA, I have a BCom, I go like this only. If he wants, he will purchase. No, because service industries most of the time it is invisible. The moment the services are invisible, human mind is unable to project. So the COVID, the virus is also after a limit, they could not understand. So of course, government was also totally failed. And look at the impact when you say unorganized sector was affected positively and negatively. Please understand, some people shifted their professions also. They lost the job, they come back to agriculture. They lost the job, some people went to fishing. Some people, which is essential industries, even some of the unorganized service industries, people gone to BD rolling. Yes, because it's a survival. So all those industries got kind of a infuse of labors. So what government did was, in case if government couldn't manage the crisis, what they did was wherever people manage the crisis, the government started giving the support in terms of kind of a credit access, and government also tried to give a moratorium at least for that particular month or 6 months or so. They will have a level of income so that they will have a consumption will motivate the production, and production again leads to the consumption. This is how the economy works. So I think almost I have given you a small picture of how as a sector, unorganized as a sector was affected in terms of employment, in terms of consumption, in terms of production. And now as a entire segment, if you see that, yes, my GDP level has come down, it has slashed down, and it was went on to negative. Then government started giving some push with some packages and all, but it couldn't sustain what it was expected. This was the one thing. And the second thing, please understand here, government up to one point. I would like to quote this example. Many of us, we don't know this example. In 2019 to 20, India's external borrowing stands somewhere 5,000 crores. Please refer Economic Survey Report. Data is available. 2020, it gone up to 55,000 crores. Sometimes I strongly feel that it is economically planned tragedy. Because now when I borrow money from those institutions like international bodies, they don't give me at a free of cost. Certain extent I can give you the okay free grant. After sometimes it will go up, and government of India was busy with raising the funds. From where you raise the funds when the GDP is falling down? Very simple economics: borrow. So we started gone with the deficit financing. We started borrowed. Please note, any government for that matter, irrespective of the parties, please note, when you borrow, you have the liability to repay. Now, who will repay? The citizens of the country has to pay taxes. Whichever the government comes, please understand, it is the repercussions of the shock. Sometimes, sometimes you might be seeing that suddenly somebody came and touched you, you got a kind of a shock. After some time, even after some time, you feel that that shock still there in my body. So economy also will experience this repercussion in long term. I'm not getting into any political understanding here. I'm saying you economics. It is a political economy. Any government will come to the power. Please understand, very simple thing we had, that the expenditure of the government has been increased, but not the revenue as same as the expenditure. So the moment when the revenue was in trouble, then how to manage? I went with the deficit financing. When I say when there is a deficit financing, definitely that will burden on each and every individual in the citizen of the country. It includes unorganized sector also. That is what exactly we are slowly and gradually, getting the heat of the impact. So it's not only that COVID has created an impact. No, COVID has created a restriction. It has restricted production, restricted in transportation. But the impact, not only by the COVID, it is because of the existing system. The government also slowly and gradually has to. You might be knowing that there is a rift is going on with the state and central bodies in terms of income sharing, in terms of GST. The state is saying, I need this much of funds. Government say that whatever I have, I will have a share. Now the question is whether the GST was useful at this time or whether the old system is good. So it's again the question where the people, but here my topic is more about unorganized sector. If I belongs to unorganized sector, please understand, I may lost my job, my income has come down, but taxes have not come down. Taxes has not come down. You may interesting say, sir, I'm not come under income tax. You say direct tax. What about the indirect tax? What about the indirect tax? What I'm paying for everything? Even I recharge of 100 rupees, out of that I get only 80 rupees remaining. You'll go for the taxes. So what about this kind of a structure, if it is the case? Now, is it capable? Government can give complete influence? No. Because government has a limitation. What is that limitation? Government only sustain when there is a revenue. Now the revenue of the government is source of the income of the public. Now they cannot charge everywhere the taxes so that government will become rich. No, definitely they will feel the heat. And the revolt has already been started. So the political understanding also, the dimensions has been changed. Now I cannot say that I will be a very good leader for the economy is concerned, but sometimes it maybe depends on the time factor, how people will take this shift in policies also. You may announced Atmanirbhar, all these programs. My first question is from where the income, the funding is coming. It is most of the time deficit financing. You borrow. Now, when you borrow, is it not the liability in the future? Definitely, my deficit will go up. And it's quite natural that I have to repay. How to repay? Do the government involved in economic activities? If you see 1991 role, now 2021, government is slowly and gradually withdrawing its role from the economic activities. You might be seeing privatization become the core understanding. That's why the government of India thought that, okay, let us privatize airports. That's why recently you might be seeing the Mangalore airport has gone to the Adani group. Now they are going to, of course, we can say that no, airport is not belongs to unorganized people and all those things. Please understand, it is at the starting point. From there, it moved to the next level also. As I already told you, we are all interdependent in the economy. That's what exactly we call it as general equilibrium model. What exactly the general equilibrium model says? The change in the price of the one sector will influence the demand of another sector also simultaneously without our knowledge, which we are all interconnected. So this is all about the current situation. Then do we have a solution for it? If I don't speak about this, I think my understanding will be incomplete. But I'm sorry that within 1 hour, it may be difficult to cover all those fundamentals, but I tried to give you the best of the nutshells and to understand, visualize. You go back and recall it and just visualize, you can better understand. See, it's not that somebody who had a MA in economics can talk about economics. It's not that. If you understand the fundamentals of the economy, you are the best persons to speak. Now, what is the solution? Now, if you look into the pure economic model, if you say that, okay, do the economic shock has a solution? No. If you say pure economic understanding, no. Why? Because it is self-adjusting in its nature. Now, from an Indian context, I cannot say that no, it is self-adjusting. Let unorganized sector people will adjust themselves to. No, it's not going to be possible. If you do that, again, social problems will increase. Now already started. So economics and sociology is again interconnected. You cannot say that no, let this job is gone. So please remember, moment you allow like this, then automatically the social problems will start. It's already started, reported. You know that what kind of the social values will change. Then automatically the production patterns will change. Please understand, production pattern. I'm used to say production pattern. I'll give you a simple example. A lady working in a garment, she was simply thrown out because she was in an unorganized understanding with that. Now what she has to do, survive for her children. If you're not giving a proper social security, government is trying to do this by supporting unorganized segment, but how much it is reached to the public is talking about the efficacy or the efficiency of that project. Now, the moment if you say that, please understand there will be a social problem. Now, what this lady has to do? Then she has to go with some illegal activities also, maybe. Then I can't blame now she's illegal. So these kind of activities will trigger. Then already we have a socio-economic problems like terrorism. We have a social elements like within the country also we have a social elements are there. We are struggling to handle that. Now, the best part is understanding here is let us work together. It is not one person's idea or one person's responsibility. Or please note, it is not government is promised to say that okay, I will give you 5,000 rupees every month. You forget about your problem. Please note from where you are giving 5,000 rupees. You are giving from the loans. Who will pay the loans? It means that you are giving me 5,000. Again, you are going to increase my taxes. It means that it is one and the same. So you can't blame on government purely that no, it is your responsibility. It is all the economic agents now has to be wait for the shock to normal economy. So then what about this, the lag period, transition period? Every economy for that, please remember, when the transition is taking from any structural changes, definitely it will have an impact. At this particular point, government can only play a significant player as a policy maker, At least you look at those unorganized sectors, the people involved them understand, get the expert committee understanding on that, involve the people and try to compensate up to one point when economy moves from shock to the normal economy. So there is no other way around government. Second, charities and funding. If you have seen in a COVID first, everybody started, supplying food, everything was fine. But in the second, slowly and gradually, the charities have also impacted. So So please understand at this level, you have international bodies where IMF, World Bank, so many international bodies are there. They have to come forward and help those economies. Now the plans are happening with the IMF level. If you see the ILO, International Labour Organizations, so these all people were trying to understand the mechanism, because it's, again, please understand, the entire world is involved. So nobody can simply say that I'll take care of one particular country. No, it's not possible. If I say, for example, US said I will not fund WHO. Simple example I'm telling. If you withdraw the, this, what will happen? Those funding on those basic facilities to the unorganized segments will be affected. So at this time, if every economies will work consciously and contribute by their own way, I think there is a silver line. There is a hope that till that particular point, I can sustain economy. But one thing you remember, bus is stopped. Bus is stopped, but bus is not spoiled. Economy has been stopped. It has not been spoiled. Please understand. It is clearly says that after one particular point, the forces, market forces will adjust accordingly and skill set will happen. Please remember here, many people learned agricultural works. I think you agree. Many people, those who are in agriculture, they shifted to courier business. Those who are shifted in some service industry. This is something called as the skill set has been started shifting. Now, the teachers, those who are not good at technology, those who are not good at the platform, the online platform, they accustom themselves to get into this. Why? Skill set slowly and gradually changed. There are many businesses like Byju's, their competitors, many people were in front line and say this has changed the structure of the education also. But there is a loophole, there is advantages also, both the way we can think. So from my side, I spoke around 50 minutes of time, tried to give a brief understanding on unorganized sector, the impact of COVID as a economic shock. And please remember, shock is temporary in nature, so it will take time. But if it is a regular basis, the shock is converted into normal structure for the economy. Accordingly, demand and supply adjusted, even the organized, unorganized sector, settle them in a better manner. So from this point, I think I have to stop at this level. If you have any questions or queries, it is open for the discussion.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, is there any question?
Yeah.
Sir? Yogi, sir?
Yeah, ma'am. Hello,
Yes,
dear
sir.
students. If you have any students or any other staff members, do you have any questions? You can ask here. It's an opportunity for you.
Okay.
Student, mute your mics. If you wanted to ask a question, then only switch on the mic.
Okay. I think there are no questions.
Okay. So if there is no question, I have I don't know how to understand anyhow.
You have fulfilled all the requirements, whatever they are expected, sir.
Okay, great. I assume.
Can I 1 second? Can I ask a question?
Please, sir, go ahead. Please, sir.
No, actually, I'm a lecturer in political science, but with a lot of interest in economics.
Good, sir.
You did cover up most of the topics which I had in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, listening to your lecture, I felt that you are actually very, what you call, you are a colorful picture you have been trying to give, that the pandemic has not affected much on the informal structure, because generally it is the whole economy is actually coming down, and one of the biggest indicator is that because the oil prices are going up. So from political science point of view, I'm talking about this. Basically, see, the pandemic has affected all sectors.
Yes.
And especially socially vulnerable population.
Correct.
In India, actually, the vulnerable population is actually based on certain social indicators.
Correct.
Caste, gender, religion.
True.
And they actually, the lowest part of them, the lower caste, Muslims, the minorities, and women constitute the biggest chunk of the labor market, unorganized sector. And within for them, I don't as far as my little knowledge goes, I think the government has not formed any basic policy for their rehabilitation. Do you see any rehabilitation policies for them?
Correct. Thank you, sir, your observation. But being an economic faculty within framework, sir, I try to cover whatever the basic understanding on impact in terms of production, consumption, and if you allow me one more hour in terms of sociology, I can give you totally different picture. I'm sure. And if you allow me to talk in terms of political economy, because please note, economics is earlier called as political economy. It was not economics. It is a part of the politics. Then they separated after Alfred Marshall and all. So your point is correct, sir. I completely agree with you. The point what you have said. But my simple understanding, when the moment I say government, from the economic point of view, I say from where is the revenue? Now, if I say I'm spending, it means that I should have a revenue. Now, if I look into the pure understanding of the revenue, either I have a income. As I see in the globalization, the shifted the revenue of the government from the economic activities to non-economic activities. One. Second, if I say the source of income is as a borrowing. As I already given you data sheet, 5,000 to 50,000 crores borrowing has gone up. And my friend who is directly involved in this business, who is an IAS officer, he used to clearly say every day we are involved in bargaining with international bodies to get a loan. I don't know how many of you know this, but we also do that. No, if we want loan, we go to somebody or that Kurumare loan, Kurumare. So the same thing, Government of India also try to do that. And unfortunately, sir, note this, that China was peeping into this business and it wants to again materialize their business there also. But Government of India is very clear that you might be seen when the Rahul Gandhi was made a comment on that. You say you want to away from China, you're taking a loan from the China only. Please note, it was a China-based bank. It was not a China bank. It was a China-based bank, but the stakeholders are other countries and other investors. So I think you are right from the political perspective, social perspective. I have not covered much. But if you ask me from the economic point of view, there is no other way around. We have to be part of this process. We have to get immunity. See, after two waves, you think, all the first wave, we all done the pranayama, everything. Second wave, all failed, openly, completely failed. They said, no, this doesn't work. We don't know. The third wave, what they say. So mind automatically set with change. Okay, let me handle. So the economy also, inbuilt stabilizers are there. They will take time. I think your point is taken. That is correct. I hope I have answered your question.
Can you enlighten on the impact of COVID on the economic conditions of the workers in the unorganized sector?
Come again, sir? Impact of the?
Can you enlighten on the way how the pandemic has affected workers in the unorganized sector?
That's what I explained to you, sir. Please understand, from the first COVID, when it happened, when this was happened, automatically the production was the first problem. When I say production, there is organized workers, we have unorganized workers. So if you see construction industry, 60% labor force come from unorganized sector. Now imagine, If the construction industry is falling down, real estate is coming down, it's quite natural. The source of income of those people, those are based on this unorganized sector, is going to toss. So what happened? They have to depend on this government that, okay, you at least give me some rice, give me something which I can survive. So it has went on very, very, of course, some states had a very tough time, like those who had a highest migrant workers. So when the construction industry had this problem, definitely it has a negative impact on these construction workers. Not only workers, please remember, the producing commodities also in the construction industries had a tough time because construction has been stopped because of the restrictions. Now what happened? Maybe there is a supply problem. Either the construct industry prices have moved up. If you see that cement and all this become a costlier, either because people used to give an example that there's no production is happening. If you want, you buy. If not, no problem. So it was that. Or else there was a no buyer. There is no buyer because there's no construction is happening. So those who are laid down in go down and all this. Now how these unorganized workers have been, that first is their source of income was in a trouble. So they had a tough time. They had a really tough time. Then you know that even the migrant workers, when moved back to their places, there are a lot of deaths happened. There was a lot of chaos has happened. So as a macroeconomic understanding, it was a tough time. Please note, it was given opportunity to Government of India to rethink that you have to do something for these migrant workers, because all of a sudden they realized that, oh, this many numbers of migrant workers are there in the country. Till that time, it was not shown in the economy at all. Then all of a sudden they said, okay, we have to plan some policies for migrant workers, unorganized workers. Even the Karnataka government has, in the second wave, they tried to bring up at least some unorganized sector also brought into some compensation and all. But I don't know how long government can also give these kind of measures. This government itself is in a trouble. Yes, sir.
Any more questions? Yes, I think there are no questions.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Dr. Satish, sir, for
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving an opportunity.
Thank you very much. That's my pleasure. How the pandemic has affected the life of unorganized sector like agriculturists, daily workers, real estate, hotel industry, or government industry. So it affected every sector, I think. So the unorganized sector, the effect on the unorganized sector is serious, very serious. Very short period, only 1 hour we have you had the time, but it will be more explanatory. You need more time, as I think. So very interesting topic, and you covered almost all the things within the short period. Thank you very much, sir, for explaining the concept in the economic terms. So now I request Dr. Prasad Rao, Principal of Government First Aid College, Hebri, for presidential remarks. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me. Yes? Can you hear
sir,
me?
We can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Earlier, when we used to have seminars, we used to tap on the mic and ask, and we could judge ourselves whether we are heard or not. Somebody listened to us, but most of the people only heard us. Today, it's a very great day for me and for my college, because Karkala MTM College has given us an opportunity to be with them in a non-ending intellectual pursuit, I would say. I am extremely thankful to the principal, Srivarmaji. I congratulate today's speaker, Satish, who very clearly and analytically explained in macro terms how the economy has to be looked at the time of a shock. It's not just an impact, it's a shock. And when a shock comes, there are both positive and negative effects. We are trying to gauge the effect. We are trying to understand the effect. And Kiran sir added another perspective there about the socio-political plight of the weaker sections because of the pandemic. I think this has been a very useful insight also, because today we speak only about economics, commerce, Kannada, English, humanities in general, or science subjects. We start thinking about them separately, and we always try to deal within the box rather than go outside the box and try to understand the world itself. But today's seminar has brought together the political, social, and economic aspects. It has shown us how commercial activities are also affected because of the pandemic. So I think we are, perhaps I'm getting very old, but people like Satish Kumar or Kiran are young. They're trying to look at the world from a very interesting perspective, which is very much needed. That is why I have a small message to our youngsters, our students who are participating here. When we were students, we used to, it was in the last century. When we were students, it was in the 20th century. And we were trying to understand and explain the effect of the First World War or even the Second World War. Even after 100 years, this is the point I would like to say, even after 100 years, we were trying to understand the effect of First World War on the economy in India. The economy, how it suffered, how drought was a very, like the present pandemic, how the drought hit the southern India and even the West Bengal. Then they used to call it Bengal. So economic effects of the war which happened in Europe and the power relationships that changed after that, because until then Europe was the center of power. But after the First World War, America, the USA, entered into a separate treaty with certain countries in Europe, and the international relationships, they changed. New Israel was born. New kinds of changes taking place economically, politically, socially, and India was also a participant in that war, which earlier meant only for the West. But today's pandemic, after 100 years, is more than a world war. Here, it's not just the life of a capitalist country, it's a rich country that is at stake. All the countries are suffering together, bleeding together. The idea of economy is undergoing a change. The global situation demands new concepts. We have to understand the migrants' problems from a different perspective than the already existing words and concepts which are written and rewritten in the textbooks. The new textbooks have to be written. New concepts have to be evolved. This shock has necessitated new kind of knowledge about the plight of the people, whether rich or poor. We have to understand the new century's catastrophe. I would call this a catastrophe. Pandemic has had catastrophic effects. It's a destructive effects. I would compare it with the First World War of the last century. And I would like our young minds like Satish or Kiran or my young students to devote their time to understand the pandemic and its effects, to evolve a new vocabulary to describe it, to find out new concepts to describe it, rather than haggle over the older issues and try to understand with the older terms. That is the need of the hour. The cyber world globalization has changed the way we meet, changed the way we speak. Similarly, this pandemic is going to change the way we look at our subjects, the academic meetings, the way we teach, the way we learn, All these things are going to change because of this pandemic, and that is the necessity of the hour. Thank you, Satish sir, for offering a very lucid and a compact lecture on the various effects of the pandemic on different macro sections in the society. If you have to speak here from the micro point of view, you have to deal with only one part of it, would have been totally different, I know, and your analytical ability is no less there. I can understand by the way you presented. The commitment, the dedication, the passion you have has helped us to understand the topic very easily. We are grappling with the problem. You are helping us to clarify certain concepts there. I also thank the participants like Kiran or the IQSC coordinator, Jyoti. I would like to also thank my dear colleague and IQSC coordinator, Pradeep. All of them have made this possible. My dear students and people from different corners of the world are watching this. There are around 259. There were around 259 participants in the beginning. 265 was the number earlier. Now it has decreased to 230.